Today we're going to talk about workbook 3A, exercise 3, and we'll be working in the textbook pages 10 and 11. There are lots of words to use today, but the concept is something you're very, very familiar with, and it is the idea of greater than and smaller than. Now be careful, in math we really need to use the word greater and smaller, or greater and less than. We don't use bigger and smaller, we use greater and smaller. And so today I'm going to use those words. If you talk to me many times, you'll probably catch me saying bigger sometimes. I try to remember, but just know that technically a number is greater than another number, not bigger than another number. Okay, so which is greater? The questions that we have, the two numbers we have are 316 and 264. Notice that I've drawn those using our idea of hundreds and tens and ones, and really all you have to know is that you have more hundreds in the 316 number. If you have more hundreds, it's a greater number. It doesn't matter how many ones or tens it has. If you have 300 compared to 200, the 300 is the greater number. The second question has which number is smaller is what we're trying to find. And so we have two numbers for that, 325, 352. Notice that all of my hundreds match up. So I can't tell from the hundreds place which one is smaller, but when I look at the tens place, I find that 50 has 5 tens, 20 has 2 tens, so 325 is smaller than 352. Then the problems on that page 10, go on and say, okay, which is greater, 4,316 or 4,264? You're going to look until you find a number that's different. If you look at the thousands place, they're the same. When you look at the hundreds place, 300 and 200 are different, and 300 is greater. So this number, 4,316, is greater than 4,264. If I compare 4,316 with 5,264, I only have to look at the thousands place to realize that one number has 5 thousands, one only has 4 thousands, and so 5,264 is definitely a greater number than 4,316. The next part wants us to find smaller numbers. Start at the thousands, 2,000 and 2,000 matches, 300 and 300 matches, but if I have 2 tens compared to 5 tens, I know that 2 tens is smaller. So 2,325 is smaller than 2,352. The next one, 3,325 compared to 2,352, we have only to look at our thousands place to realize that the 2,000 number is smaller than the 3,000 number. So we don't have to go all the way to the end with every problem. We just compare them until we find a place value that is different. Continuing on number 10. Sorry, I had a little screen glitch there. We're on page 10, number 8. The question is the instructions are for us to write the word greater or less on each line here. 7,031 compared to 7,301. When I look at the number in the hundreds place, I realize that 7,000 is less than 7,300. If I have 8,004 compared to 8,040, the numbers become different in the tens column. 0 tens is less than 4 tens, so 8,004 is less than 8,040. In the last number, or letter C, 3,756 compared to 3,576, all I have to do is recognize they both have 3,000. One has 700, one has 500, so 3,700 is greater than 3,576. Number 9 at the bottom of that page, wants us to know which one is greatest and which one is smallest. Notice, of course, the EST tells us that we're comparing 3 or more items. The ER, greater or less than, tells us that we're comparing 2 numbers. But when we have greatest, we're looking at 3 numbers. Of all 3 numbers, notice that the thousands place are a 5, a 4, and a 4. Without paying any attention to anything else, I know that the greatest number is 5,073. To find the smallest number, I see that I have 2 in the 4,000s. Both of them also have 900s, but when I get to the tens place, one of them has 8 tens, one has 7 tens. Of these 2 numbers, 4,973 is smaller than 4,982, so that tells me that 4,973 is the smallest of all 3 numbers. All right, going over to page 11. At the top of the page, there are some statements. It says that of a 3-digit number, the smallest 3-digit number is 100. Now notice we never begin a number with 0. So if I say the number 15, I don't put a 0 in front. I just call it 15. So 15 is a 2-digit number. Although it's true that I have 0 hundreds, we don't consider that a 3-digit number. We consider it a 2-digit number. So looking at 3-digit numbers, the smallest 3-digit number is 100 because the number right before that is a 2-digit number. That's the first 3-digit number. That's the smallest 3-digit number. The greatest 3-digit number is 999. Why? Because the next number is 1,000, and that's a 4-digit number. Of course, we can have zeros after the first digit, but you cannot put a 0 in the place of the first digit. So then the question is, what is the smallest 4-digit number, and then what is the greatest 4-digit number? Probably you've recognized the pattern. I've actually already written the smallest 4-digit number because it's the first number that can be written in 4 digits. Again, sometimes we use a comma, sometimes the book does not. The greatest 4-digit number is going to be the number that is just before we become a 5-digit number, and that number is 9,999. That's the greatest 4-digit number that you can write. Number 11 gives us 4 numbers to arrange in order, beginning with the greatest. I would look at these numbers. Obviously, we're looking at the thousands place, and we have 4,123. That's the greatest number, so I'm going to write it first. As I scan those 3 numbers that are left, I can tell really quickly that 2,431 is the smallest number. And so I'm going to have 2 spots left for the numbers in the middle, 3,400, 3,100. It doesn't take much to realize that 3,412 is greater than 3,142. Notice that all of those numbers have the digits 1, 2, 3, and 4 in them, but they have a different value based on what place the digits are written in. All right, number 12 wants us to arrange in order, beginning with the smallest. Do you notice that we have a 3-digit number in there? That 3-digit number is the smallest of the numbers. So I'll write that down first. It's often easiest to find the largest, the greatest. We always want to use the word greatest. Find the greatest number and the smallest number, and then you can compare the middle numbers a little easier. So 9,003 is the greatest number. 913 is the smallest number. Of the 2 numbers I have left, 1,700, which is actually 1,703, is smaller than 1,800, 1,892, and so that is how I would arrange them in order, smallest to greatest. Place value is the key. All right, last few problems on this in these examples, page 11, number 11, or number 13, if we're going to use the digits 0, 4, and 5 to make a 3-digit number, we can't start with 0, we could start with 4 and make 0 the next number and 5 the last number, or we could start with a 4 and make 5 next and 0 would come after that. We could start with the 5 and put 4 next and 0 last, or start with a 5 and put 0 next and 4 last. But those are the only 4 ways that we can arrange the digits to make a 3-digit number. Again, I cannot start with 0. If I start with 4, either 0's next or 5 is next. If I start with 5, either 4 comes next or 0 comes next. So those are the only numbers I have as options for 3-digit numbers, and the question is, of those, which is the greatest? Well, definitely a 500 number is greater than a 400 number, and 540 is bigger than 500 with 0 tens. So I used a process of elimination. I picked the bigger, the greater of the two numbers, 540 and 504, and then I found of the two of them which one was the greater of the two. Same kind of logic to find the smallest number. I know that both 405 and 450 are smaller than 540 and 504, but which one is smaller of the two 400 numbers? It doesn't take much looking to realize that 405 has a 0 in the tens place, and that will be smaller than 450. What if we try to write the greatest 4-digit number using those 4 digits, 0, 7, 2, 8? What if we don't write out all the options first? It turns out to be rather easy. The greatest 4-digit number that includes these 4 digits is definitely going to have an 8 in the thousands place, because 8,000 is more than 2,000, more than 7,000. Once I've used the number 8, I'm not going to reuse it. So the next number I would put in would be the hundreds place, and 700 is greater than 200. 2 tens is greater than 0 tens, and the last number that I have is a 0. The greatest 4-digit number that I can make with those 4 digits is 8,720. The smallest 4-digit number I could make using the digits 3, 7, 4, and 9 is going to start with a 3 in the thousands place. It will have a 4 in the hundreds place because that's smaller than having a 700 or a 900. The 7 will be in the tens place, the 9 will be in the ones place. The smallest 4-digit number that I can create using those 3 digits will be 3,479. And I bet you notice a pattern about the greatest 4-digit number and the smallest 4-digit number. When you're picking them out, I bet you can find a pattern that will work. All right, with all of that information, you can work on exercise 3.